gotten to spend these weeks together having an extreme spiritual makeover. I trust and I pray that these have been transforming weeks that have built good habits in you to be in the Word daily, to be looking at your priorities, to be spending time lingering with the Lord, to have a heart full of Him and passionate about Him so that He can come in, wash you, and then give you His love for the priorities in your life. Because I want us to be women who reflect the heart of Christ in our priorities for the rest of our days. And I hope that you're like one of my friends who recently told me that she has gone through this 7 or 8 times because she knows how easy it is for her heart to stray and get distracted by all the things, but she wants to keep her priorities straight. And so she goes over this again and again and again. So I hope that we get to meet here in the future. I hope that you will even grab some girlfriends and get them books or tell them to go grab them on Amazon so you can lead them in having an extreme spiritual makeover. I just believe this is a fantastic discipleship guide. And I hope that as you have seen God work in your own life, that you will desire this for others. And after all, that is the chapter that we've come to, chapter 11, having a heart burning for others. And who better for us to look at as our example of having a heart burning for others than our Lord Jesus Himself. We know that He said that His will is to do the will of His Father. That is all that He desired. And I'm so thankful that we have the gospel records that we can go back and read over and over again and be in awe of the kind of otherness that Jesus gave us an example of for us to follow in. One of the things that astounds me about Jesus' life is that he had eyes to see the needs around Him. He wasn't consumed with Himself and His own needs, but He was always looking and aware of the other people in His life. And I pose the question to you, I know that there are times we don't even know that there are others. We are so consumed with our own lives, our own needs, our own problems, and we don't even recognize the needs around us. And I believe that one of the reasons Jesus had a heart burning for others and had eyes to see the needs of others is that He spent His mornings, we have that glimpse of Jesus in the Gospels where it says that He stole away to a quiet place and was found praying there. So while the disciples were asleep, Jesus tiptoes out of the apartment and He's found in some place where the sun is still rising, praying because He longed to be alone with His Father, to have that intimate, loving time with Him, and then second, to get His heart right and prepared for the day. And I believe that's where His yearning and desire and burning love for others began, after spending time communing with the Father. And I really believe that we have to do the same thing. Many of you have heard my morning prayer. So when I wake up, before I even get out of bed in the morning, I pray these 3 things. 1, the prayer is full of thankfulness for all that God has done for me and given to me, all the things that I don't deserve from Him. The second, I pray that God will give me eyes like Jesus to see the needs around me. And then third, I pray, oh God, once I see those needs, please give me your strength and your power to meet those needs, because I cannot meet them with the power I have in and of myself. And I believe that's what Jesus did. And I believe it's important for you and I to begin the day by laying before ourselves and before the Lord our desire to see the needs around us, and then request His power and His strength to meet those needs as we find them. And then I believe if we do that in the morning, then the rest of the day we're doing what Jesus did. We're looking for opportunities. We're seeing people everywhere we go. Jesus saw the fringe people, the taxpayer up in a tree on the edge, peering in, the woman at the well, the outcast that nobody else would speak to, the woman who was about to be stoned to death because of her sin. Jesus saw those fringe people that nobody else wanted to see. He cared for the people that nobody else wanted to care for. So it behooves you and I to reach those same people. Maybe it's not the popular, beautiful people. Maybe it's the people that are on the fringe that nobody else sees. I pray that God would give us eyes to see those people. That is who Jesus came for. I don't know if you saw it. There was a little thing on the news the other day. and there was a woman in the subway and surrounded by people. It was just packed, people everywhere. And she had an umbrella. And somebody took out their cell phone and they were videotaping this woman beating another woman right on the subway. She was kicking this other woman, spitting on this other woman, while everybody around her got their cell phones out and were videotaping. They were bystanders. They were watching. Nobody came to the aid and rescue of this poor woman who was getting beaten. Ladies, what has happened to us? We are bystanders. We are watching life happen and we're not getting involved. Heavens, let us be women who are training our children to step in, to see the needs of others, and be Jesus' hands and feet that care for people in need. I was shocked there wasn't a man or a woman around that would grab hold and stop that woman from the terrible things that she was doing. Nobody stepped in to take the blows away from that poor woman on the ground that was getting beaten. Ladies, what is happening to us? Are we so consumed with our own lives, not wanting to see the needs around us? So busy on our screen, so busy on our computers, within the four walls of our own home, or even the walls of our own heart and our own depression or our own needs, that we don't see the needs around us. Ladies, that is the path of joy. As you get outside of yourself and allow God to use you in ways that maybe you'd never dreamed, that might feel a little scary, as you allow God to use you in those ways, you are going to reap such reward. God will use you in ways, I believe, that will ripple for all eternity. Are you willing? Do you love Him enough? Have you let Him fill your colander to overflowing? And with that love that He has filled you with, are you willing to pivot and love people who need you desperately? In fact, that God has probably put in your path for you to meet those needs. Do you have eyes to see? Are you willing? And what are you willing to do? Are you willing to pause? Are you willing to stop? Are you willing to put yourself out there? Ladies, I don't believe that we can use the excuse of, well, that's outside my comfort zone. I don't see in this book anywhere where it talks about us having the privilege of having a comfort zone. Instead, I believe we have the privilege of dying to self, of putting our lives out there for the behest of other people. The Bible is clear that we are to care for widows and orphans. We are to care for those people that nobody else cares for. That is our job. That is our duty before the Lord. He saved us so that we can pivot and turn and give His love, be His hands and feet to those people that He puts in our path. I don't believe that we're allowed to be shy. I believe that we are to put ourselves out there and use the voice. Remember, He told Moses when he was afraid to speak, I will give you the words. Just open your mouth. Ladies, let's not use excuses. It's not my gift. I'm shy. It's outside my comfort zone. I've never done that before. I don't feel comfortable with that. If we use those excuses, do you think we are letting God down? Are we limiting God? Or are we putting our trust and entrusting ourselves to a beautiful Savior who put Himself out there to be misused, misunderstood, slandered, beaten, and horrifically put to death? If Jesus did that for us, ladies, what are we willing to do for Him? Do we love Him so much that we are willing, we are ready to speak of Him, to love others on His behalf? Are we willing to, on a Sunday morning, to look for the lady who's sitting by herself, the new woman in Sunday school class, to go grab her and make her sit by us, to take her to lunch, to call her on the phone? What are we willing to do? You know, it might sound really silly to you, and it might sound like these are really unimportant things, this list of where it says Project Care on page 145. And they might seem really insignificant to you. But all these little things I'm asking you to do, I'm hoping and I'm praying that by putting yourself out there in these tiny little areas, that it might open the door for something bigger, for something greater, that these might be relationship starters or conversation starters, or that might give you a window into somebody else's life where God can use you magnificently and mightily in the lives of other people. So let's just take a minute and look at what Jesus did in Matthew chapter 20. Turn there with me if you would. Matthew chapter 20. And we've read this story many times before. Matthew 20, verse 20, and it says this. And picture this whole story in your mind's eye. Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came to Jesus with her sons, bowing down and making request of him. And he said to her, "What do you wish?" So picture this. So she brings her two sons, James and John, with her. And she makes kind of, not in a bad way, but a little bit of a spectacle. And she bows down in front of all these people that are present. And so Jesus responds to that and says, What do you want? What can I do for you? And she says to him, okay, this is what I want. And I think this can be a lesson to us, because I believe that she made a gigantic, big, bold request of God. And I don't think anything should hold you and I back from doing the very same thing. Because even though this request was completely out of line, it was absolutely something that Jesus was not going to do. She made a bold request of God. And here's the beautiful thing, and you watch for it as we read it. Jesus didn't mock her for making this big request. He didn't make fun of her. He didn't make an example of her in front of all of these people. He didn't embarrass her or shame her for going to God and making a great, big, giant, bold prayer request. Oh, ladies, may that be an example to you and I in our prayer lives. So she said to him, "Command that in your kingdom these two sons of mine may sit, one at your right and one at your left." She was a little misunderstanding what Jesus was here for. Her timeline was just a little bit off. Jesus was going to come up and set up his kingdom later. This trip was to die for her sins and the sins of her sons. Yes, he was going to set up a kingdom, but not just yet. And so Jesus answered and said, "You do not know what you are asking," he said to the mama. And then he turned to the boys and he said, "Are you able, sons, to drink the cup that I am about to drink?" And not having any idea what he meant by that, they said, "Yes, we are able." And we know that later on, Jesus is going to go to the Garden of Gethsemane and he's going to talk about drinking this cup of wrath. And he falls down and he's in so much agony that he sweats drops of blood. And he begs God 3 times, "Please, please, please, God, is there another way? Father, please don't make me do this. It's going to be so horrific and so awful, and I'm so fearful of this death that I must die, to drink this cup of wrath for all of mankind, that it would take them all of eternity to suffer in hell. But if you ask me to drink it, if you want to punish me instead of punishing them in this way, then I will submit." That is what he was asking these boys. Can you drink this cup that I'm about to drink? And they flippantly, not having any idea what Jesus was truly saying, said, "Yes, we are able." And then Jesus says something really interesting. "My cup you shall drink." Because James was going to be beheaded, John was going to be beaten and exiled and put in prison on the Isle of Patmos. They were certainly going to suffer for the name of Jesus Christ. But he said, "For me, it is not up to me, but to sit at my right hand and on my left. This is not mine to give, but it is for those to whom it has been prepared by my Father." And hearing this, the 10 became indignant with the 2 brothers. The other 12 disciples, or 10, were sitting around listening, and they were like, "Wait a minute here. Who do you two think you are to be having these prominent places of high position and power and recognition in the kingdom, to sit at Jesus' right hand and his left? We want places of position and importance and prominence too." I mean, it's just really so awful and so disgusting that these 12 men were more worried about having power and fame and recognition than they were about serving Jesus. They did not understand. And I suppose if it were you and I in the same situation, we would have said or thought the same thing. Upon hearing this, the 10 became indignant with the 2 brothers. But Jesus called them to himself and said, listen, you guys, come here, sit down. You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great men exercise authority over them. It is not this way among you. He says, think about it for a minute. Look at all the leaders of the world and how they take their power and how it corrupts them. They use it to hurt other people. They claw and clamor and manipulate to get power so they can use it to abuse other people, to hold their power, to have fame and importance and wealth. He said, this is not to be true of my disciples. But whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant. It's just like Jesus. He turns everything upside down. So he says, it is not this way among you, but whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. Jesus wanted them to understand. Don't you see? Haven't you been watching my life? Haven't you heard me say that my food is to do the will of my Father? Haven't you watched me stop along the road and listen to those who are calling out the lame, the blind, those full of leprosy, the poor, the impoverished? Haven't you watched me serve those who the world has discarded? How can you think that you would desire more greatness than what I have already shown you? Greatness is to stop on the side of the road and help those who are desperately in need. That is greatness in my kingdom. Ladies, we must never lose sight of that. Greatness isn't a beautiful Instagram feed. It's not a beautiful Pinterest board. It's not having the perfect bed with 15 pillows on top. It's not having your hair just right and your lips and the right mascara and the right gloss. Greatness is to stop and hear and see and be touched and be moved by the needs of others. To start every day anticipating that God is going to use you this day in some mighty, miraculous, eternity seeking way. Ladies, your life can make a ripple for all eternity. This day can make a ripple for all of eternity. Don't you want that to be true? And ladies, I beg you to not only make that true in your life, but in the lives of the women that you're discipling, the lives of your friends, of your family, of your children, of your grandchildren. Dream with them of how they can spend their lives serving God and serving Him by meeting the needs of others around them. As you're driving down the road, as you're walking through the mall, as you're going for walks through the neighborhood, look, tell them, seek the needs of others. Take your Thanksgiving and go feed the homeless. Take your Christmas money and go spend it on those in need. Go on missions trips to help those who are impoverished. Budget out time out of your life to meet the needs around you. Keep margin in your life so you're not so very busy that you can't pause to sit and listen to somebody else's story, to put your arm around them, to stop and pray with them. Be creative throughout your day, throughout your weeks and your months and your years, and think and dream of ways that God might use you to meet the needs around you. Ladies, don't we want to have joy in our life? What greater joy could there be by meeting the needs of others around us, knowing that you are being the hands and feet of Jesus, that you're giving them a glimpse of who God the Father is by showing them His heart. And then every act of kindness that you are giving, you're putting a smile on the face of God. What is more important than that? I don't know if you've heard me tell this story before, but I remember being in Russia once, and in one of my trips, I had a translator named Anya, and she told me this story, and it's forever marked my life. And I want so very much to be like her. But it's not just the wishing that makes it true, but it's the daily praying over this desire that it will stay hot in my heart, and it will stay real, and it will stay in the forefront of my mind. Because every single day I am tempted to be all about me, what I want, what I need, when I need it. And to be making improvements to my skincare, to my hair, to my home, to my car, even to my family, instead of to the others that really have needs around me. Ladies, the time that I waste on myself is so sad. Anya told me of a day when she was in her flat, and in Russia, flats are big, tall buildings. You walk near them and they're dark, and there's no grass, and there's graffiti and trash everywhere, and you go inside and they smell terrible, and they're dark, and you go up the flights of steps to find where you're going, and inside there's metal doors or gated doors with great big bars on them to cover what you and I would have as a front door with many locks on them. There's always another door that's either all iron or bars to keep people out, because it's dangerous and people are always trying to break in. And so she heard a knock at her flat one day, and so she opened the wooden door, and before she opened it fully and she could see the person on the other side of the gate, she could smell who was there. And she opened the door, and there was this little round babushka. Women in Russia are always tall and beautiful, and they have these beautiful stiletto boots that they wear on ice. I don't know how they do it. And but when they become a babushka, a grandmother, something happens and they just become round and adorable. And she was begging for food, and so Anya could have done so many things. She could have just gotten some money and handed it to her through the iron bars. She could have gotten some food out of her pantry and pushed it through the iron bars. But instead she did something that I question and wonder, what would I do? Would I have done what she did? She opened her iron door, and she invited the babushka inside, and she led her to her bathroom, where she drew a hot bath, and she took off the clothes from this old woman. She piled them in a corner, and she helped this woman into a hot, steamy, soapy bath, where she proceeded to not leave her there alone, but she washed her, and she washed her hair, and she so gently washed her body. And then she drained out the dirty water and got a clean bath for her to soak in, while she bundled up the filthy clothes, threw them away, and then she went begging from door to door in her flat to find someone that could give her clean clothes for this old woman. And so she came back, and she got that old woman out of the tub and dried her off, lotioned up her skin, put the new clothes on her, and sat her down at her kitchen table, where she prepared quite a meal for her to enjoy. And as the old woman was eating, my friend Anya shared the beautiful gospel of Jesus and his great love for this old woman. I can't think of a more beautiful gospel message than what Anya showed her and then told her. And I just pray that you and I could be that kind of woman that expends her life for others without counting the cost, that is eager to be giving of our time, that doesn't use excuses, that begins her day in prayer, anticipating the great ways that God might use her today. Ladies, may we be women on the edge of our seat, having hearts burdened and burning for others. And I pray that when I get to see you next, or maybe by email, or on Facebook or Instagram, you'll let me know how God's using you in some fantastic opportunity that you got to be the hands and feet of Christ. And maybe you don't know the outcome of the fruit of that just yet, but I believe that when we get to heaven, we're going to sit and talk. And we're going to talk about how God used us and how we had grand opportunities and the fantastic ways that God used our itty-bitty little sacrifice, our little loaves and fishes to feed the multitudes. And I pray that heaven is different because you, my friend, my makeover friend, had a heart burning for others. And I pray that others would see your heart and that it would catch like fire. And that God would use you and your life to set ablaze our country. That we could be a country on our knees that goes back to the Lord and repents and lives fully for Him, as evidence as how we treat the poor among us. So ladies, thank you. Thank you for these 11 weeks. It has been, again, my joy, my honor, my delight to have shared with you these things that have been burned by my discipler in my heart and my life. And there's nothing better to me than sharing my spiritual journey with my girlfriends. And so I hope to meet you in another study, maybe Adorned with Humility or Extreme Spiritual Makeover. I invite you to go and subscribe to my YouTube channel where you'll be getting lots more lessons from me, or on Instagram. I'll be sharing lots more there too. So bye for now. I love you. I care deeply for you, and you will continue in my heart and my prayers. Thank you, ladies, and may God bless your extreme spiritual makeover. Bye for now.